all good. As long as you're ready, that's all that matters to me. Yeah.
Back.
Hey, look at that, huh? So they made a broadcaster update. What do you know?
Well, because it involved race spot.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Yeah. Three races remain, including today, but in spite of that, at least one of the championships has a chance to be wrapped up by the time the checkered flag falls. Asking for a calm race might wind up being a fool's errand, though. Phillip Island has become notorious in this series for wild and exciting races. A variety of challenging corners and a racing line that repeatedly crosses the track becomes a recipe for constant action when you throw three different classes on the circuit. Let's see what this season holds in store as we get ready to watch round 12 of the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth covering the prototype and GTLM classes is Bill Soup Zahn. Keeping us up on the GTD class is Adam Lindgren. Behind the scenes is our director Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Adam, Australia will be the last of the Pacific Lake tracks, and from here, it'll be a return to Europe. So, tell us about the track from down under.
No problem, Joe. One of the legends of motor parks in Australia, known for its challenging, fast, sweeping corners and its hard-braking zones, this is the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. Originally the host of what is now the Bathurst 1000, this Ventnor victorious circuit has played host to many famous racing series, as most recently known for hosting the Australian and World Superbike Championships, and hosts auto sports events nearly year-round. This difficult circuit is nearly 4.5 kilometers or 2.8 miles long and features 12 turns, 5 to the right and 7 to the left. This is a relatively high-speed circuit that will be flat out much of the time for the prototypes and will be skillful management of throttle and traction for the GTLM and GTDs. If you're trying to make it by someone, whether the lap or to pass, setting them up around Dewan Corner into the Southern Loop or through Stoner into the Honda Corner are your best bets. Otherwise, you're stuck waiting to pass until a late dive into turn 10 or a good exit of 11 giving you the inside into 12. On top of all of this is the southern coastal location of the circuit, creating the potential for high winds and humidity, making braking especially difficult tonight. Expect a lot of lap time lost by our faster classes as they get stuck behind GTD battles throughout the second half of this course. But let's jump in and take a lap around Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit in our GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Taylor Burris in the GSRC 4 GT, so let's do a lap around Phillip Island. You'll be getting a ton of speed down the front stretch, but the first corner isn't ideal for passing. Doohan is a fast sweeper with no braking, and for the most part will probably be single file. The first braking zone is honestly into the southern loop, where passes are possible but tricky. This is a long left-hander that's off-camber, includes a few elevation changes among its two apexes. It's easy to botch. Ideally, you'll want to focus on getting the exit right the most, because it leads towards a very popular corner for overtaking. Stoner is of course easily flat out, so hug the left side and set yourself up for Honda. This hairpin will see the most action, but it's surprisingly easy to send it in too deep. However, if someone pulls an over-under, they'll find themselves on the wrong side of the track up towards Siberia. Because of that, you won't usually see passes happen into this uphill bend. It's probably wise to square off this exit because the elevation will continue to rise here on the back half of the course. You won't be lifting on your way through the S's and you'll start to get a pretty good head of steam. But at the end of this is Lukey Heights, where you're essentially braking and turning on your way into it. This is one of the most difficult corners of the track, tending to leave you fighting with understeer. Plus, it blends directly into the braking for MG. The steep downhill plunge makes it embarrassingly easy to come in too hot. Then it switches back into the penultimate corner where you've got to be patient with the throttle. From there, you now fly through Swan. It's not quite flat out, but it'll be very important to carry your momentum as you return to the front stretch. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in a game of chicken with your competitors on the way down to Doohan. But hopefully, if you've kept it all together, you've now finished a lap around Phillip Island. There you can see a lap around in the daytime, but it is a setting sun, a twilight race here today. So it's going to get a little bit dark as things go on. To keep us in the light, though, is Bill with the championship. Bill, let's see if our audience has been paying attention, can guess which of them can be wrapped up today.
Yeah, well, they won't have to really work too hard to figure this one out. 7 wins and 2 in a row for Jason Gerard. He's got himself a whopping 74-point lead, and you can probably figure out that that's real close to being all said and done. Now, the Big Cheese had 3 podiums in a row at Le Mans and Monza and Suzuka, but the Cheese slipped off the pizza at Imola, and John Ulmer finished 9th. Carter Kundinger used drop insurance in Italy, while Sean McGarvey finished a spot ahead of Ulmer in 8th. The gap between the Dinger and Steve Mack now a single point. And Imola saw the Wolf-Mole fight back there as Joshua Wolf was going at it with Dean Mole. Mole got the best of it in the end, and he came home in 6th and now moves up onto the overlay. Let's go ahead and look at the GTLMs. We got a 28-point gap here. This one can't be clinched today, but still, Stephen McGarvey looking pretty strong ahead there with Bradley Haley. Got the win last time out. Mike Young took 2nd ahead of McGarvey, who was in 3rd, knocking 3 points off the deficit. I figure if Young can keep doing that, he should catch McGarvey around Trump's 3rd term. William Laster was 4th and moves around Jason D3 DeVries. Alex Amanda continues to drop, now down into 5th. Let's look at the AM standings here in the GTDs. This is the closest battle. Only 17 points separate Kevin Santana and Mike Major. Santana has 2 wins. Major's still looking to pick up his first win. Speaking of winning, how about 2 in a row for Paul Simonik? Is he only 40 points back? Probably too far back to get the championship. Maybe he can catch Mike Majors if things go south for Mike. And then there is the great late season charge from Lionel Duprat, now moving up into a tie with Shane Hunter for 4th place. Finally, we look at the team championship. SRN Orange sitting on top with a 90-point lead. That's not as big as you might think. They're still in jeopardy of losing it to SRN Gray, but SRN Orange has Mole, McGarvey, and Young all on those top 5 overlays. The only team to have at least 3 drivers making the top 5 in the driver standings. Lamberti West, TMC Crimson, and SRN Black. Hey, SRN Black, they're 314 back. They climbed up onto the overlay for the first time this season. All right, Joe.
Glad to see them joining the top 5 once again. But let's talk about the race today. I mentioned it's going to be a twilight race. Adam, what about the other details that they have to deal with?
Definitely, this is round 12 of 14, so it's this race and 2 more that they have chances to score points. So this is a 60-minute race with these 3 classes, the prototypes, the GTLMs, and the GTDs. All of the cars you can see on your screen are featured. The setups are open, but there is restricted fuel at 67%, so there will be at least 1 pit stop for all of these classes. 24 X's, 24 incidents today is going to be their maximum, and they do not get a spare car. So these guys are going to have to be super careful if they go off track here to try and save it before they slide down into the ocean or hit a wall.
Yeah, hopefully they don't slide down into the ocean. Hopefully they'll take the right pit exit as well, Bill. One thing I was checking in on the race-specific rules is this track is unique in that it has 2 pit exits, but apparently they are requiring the drivers to use the long one that empties into turn 1. There you can see it right there. Sheldon's using it.
The short one or the long one, I really don't think there's much of an advantage as far as speed on either one. I do like the long one as far as safety. It kind of dumps you out on the outside going into that very first corner, maybe a little bit safer rather than putting you out early. Hopefully all the drivers got the news on that one and they can remember.
And I'll tell you what, Adam, Bill mentioned the charge of Duprat that's been happening here late in the season, but what about Slavonic? He's 3rd in the points, and he's on back-to-back wins. Now, I wouldn't have really thought that he was going to be a player in the championship earlier on this season, but boy, Slavonic, I kind of wonder if maybe he's got a shot at this.
I think he's a little bit too far back, to be honest. Unless Santana and Mike Major wreck out of 2 of these races, I think it's just too many points to try and make up. But he has been showing himself to be extremely impressive and almost had pole today before he was knocked off in a last lap shootout between him and Mark Kudrowski, the 2 of them duking it out for pole position, and Kudrowski coming out on top by only 4 100ths of a second. So really impressive run from Slavonic for sure.
Today, right now, since you mentioned the qualifying, Jason Girard holds provisional pole, but that qualifying for the prototypes is still going on. It was McGarvey last week who had it, but I do not see him here today. So Jason's got a good chance of keeping this pole position since we got a few big hitters that are missing. Mole actually managed to put it in 4th currently and was looking at a podium last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, and unfortunately had a problem at the very end where he touched the wall by his own error. Let's see what this lap is for him. Looks like that one, unfortunately, not going to count, so he'll have to go around for another time. Now, in the GTLMs, Bill, I've been kind of looking at McGarvey and Young with their fight that they've got going on, but they've kind of got a fly in the ointment. Haley coming back and looking strong.
He is, and what that really does is, I talked about the interval that Young was able to knock off of McGarvey. Well, if this makes sense to you, see if I can explain this logically. There's a larger gap between 1st and 2nd than there is between 2nd and 3rd. So with Haley getting those wins, it really decreases the amount of points that Mike Young can get. If he finishes ahead of McGarvey, he's only getting a couple points less than he would if he would have got the win. Nice to see Bradley Haley come back. He's been doing it part-time, picked up his first win last time out, and good to see him back here again, close out the season.
Well, I thought he also won in Monza, did he not? I'll have to double check.
I'll double check on that. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it was his 2nd win. Even still, a brilliant comeback from him. Now, Leif Peterson, who we just saw cross the line, if I recall, at the start of the season in this car, Leif was well down the order, and suddenly he's on the front row today. The 39 is looking incredibly good. Dean Mole also going to try and put a faster one. Oh, now Mole is on the front row as well. He disposes of Leif Peterson and puts himself next to Jason Girard. He might get that podium yet.
And there's a lot of calls for drug testing on Leif Peterson. I don't think that's the case. I just think He's really come into it here as late.
How do you drug a computer?
You get a little suspicious when things start to happen, but yeah. How about, but you talked about Peterson. Basically, I can say the same thing about Dean Mole, who you talked about him putting on a great show last time out at Suzuka, and here he is now second fastest out here. When you think about it, he's ahead of, we're missing a few of the fast guys, but he's ahead of Billy Smith.
Certainly is, and drivers have a little bit of time left, enough to get one or two more laps in if they want. Adam, I mentioned in the pre-race about the way this track weaves back and forth and the racing line going across. For our audience that isn't used to multi-class racing, explain why that causes such chaos in a series like this.
Well, as the faster cars are coming up from behind, they're trying to figure out where they're going to go around the slower classes. So these prototypes in front are trying to figure out how they're going to get around the GTLM and GTD cars. And they have to figure that out a couple of corners ahead of time, but it can be really difficult to do that when the racing line continues to go from the left to the right and back again. And that's because the slower cars need all of that room in order to make sure that they can actually take the corners at a good speed and not lose a ton of lap time. So the faster cars have to watch out and make sure that they are extremely careful when they try and come and make a pass, because if they catch them at the wrong time, they can actually lose time or even create contact if the racing line crosses from one side to the other while they're trying to make a pass.
We saw on screen, for some reason, Kanchan abandoning that lap at the very end, and he cannot continue in qualifying. Josh Wolf, on the other hand, does take the lap, but he does not improve. He's currently last of all the drivers to put a time in here in the prototypes, which is surprising considering his performance 2 weeks ago. Not sure what is going on there. Let's see who else is still continuing on. Looks like Dean Mole is... Oh, no, Dean Mole's going to come on in as the checkered flag comes out, so he's not satisfied with that last lap. Then you've got Jason Girard, who is on the pole, going to complete this last lap, see if he can extend the gap. And he does. It's a 16.645. That is half a second up. Looks like Mark Wilson will be the next one to come across. He's sitting in 7th out of 8. He comes around Swan Corner onto the front stretch. Quite a bit of shadows coming across the track at this point from the trees nearby, and he does not improve. Wolf also abandons his final lap, so that finishes it out. And I tell you what, Adam, you noticed something that I hadn't noticed, at least before we had that improvement from Jason Girard. It is very tight in the prototype field.
Very tight. They're almost under 1 second for between everybody, but with Jason Girard setting that quickest lap time, that puts them just outside of a second. Joshua Wolf 1.13 outside of Jason Girard's time by the end of that qualifying session.
That's going to be everybody wrapped up. So let's go to the starting grid for today's race, round 12. You can see Jason Girard on the pole looking to seal up that championship today. In fact, I think he will just by taking the starting grid. Dean Mole, going to see if maybe he could do something about Jason with his recent speed, get his first win of the series. Leif Peterson will be starting in third. A great improvement for him. Billy Smith comes back after his one race ban. Unfortunately, a little bit of controversy for him in Suzuka put him on the sidelines for a bit, but he returns in 4th. Sheldon Rosenbaum will be P5. Then it's Robert Kanchan starting in 6th, followed by Mark Wilson in 7th. And the small prototype field today rounded out by Josh Wolf in 8th.
Coming off a win last time out, Bradley Haley is back sitting on the pole. He's got Stephen McGarvin, who is your point leader, right behind him. Daniel Peralti and Olivia Ducat are in the next row. Dave Hill was a nice run. Now, here's something to watch out for. Mike Young, who's trying to run down McGarvin. He's got some work to do as he sits 6th in class. Paul Lindsay, Ryan Huff, Travis Henderson, and rounding out the small GTLM field is Joey Trungale. Adam?
We have Mark Kudrowski on the pole, an impressive lap for him, putting him just above Paul Slavonic, who's outside of him. We have Lionel DePratt starting the 2nd row alongside Kevin Santana, and Mike Major's going to line up on the 3rd row on the inside. So those two duking it out for the championship and starting right next to one another. Matt Owens starting outside of Mike Major. Shane Hunter is going to start on that 4th row alongside Eric Intilli, who we've seen show an impressive pace in the last couple of weeks. Gerard Gilbert and Chris Sherburne are going to round out your last people in the field. And back to you, Joe.
Not sure if Art Peck is going to be taking part today. In fact, no, he is not. Looks like he's not in the session. So he will not be even starting from the pit lane. Now, you may have noticed that it has gotten a little bit brighter, and it helps if I pay closer attention to the steward's notes before the start of the race, because it did say that it starts at 1500, so 3 p.m. virtual standard time here in Australia. And I did notice that, but I didn't think about it when I looked at that 1700 time in the qualifying, Bill. Sorry, go ahead.
The sun sets differently in the southern hemisphere, so I think that's probably why that happened.
No, Bill's joking. It has looped around to the next day in the races in the afternoon. So we can see them lining up on the grid. That gives us plenty of time for you to try and pick your choices. But at least for the first class, Bill, I think it's probably an easy choice.
Oh, with apologies to Dean Mole and Leif Peterson fans club, I just don't think they have anything for Jason Girard. Unless Incident Cap gets him, I think Girard's going to walk away with this. We go down to the GTLMs. You know, I just think the Comet is streaking through the sky right now. So let's give, I'm going to go chalk here and take the two pole sitters, Bradley Haley with the win. Adam, yours is a little tougher.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one. If Paul Savanek can hang on to his Audi around the outside of 2, through that corner, I think he'll be able to hold on to the win. But if he's not going to get it, I would actually give it to Lionel Duprat. I think Mark Kudrowski's going to blister under the pressure today.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Adam always has some good insights out here as we watch them now work their way up to the southern loop. And I can confirm, since Jason Girard has now taken to the grid and started this race, he has now sealed the championship for the prototype. So he is your new champion this season in that fastest class. John Ulmer not here today, sadly. And since he only needed to outscore him by 5 points, that does it. So we follow the Porsche pace car with our new champion leading the way, seeing if he can seal things off with another victory. He's taken the lion's share this season, although I'm sure those around him will be looking to try and see what they can do to stop that drum roll that he has had going on.
You talked about the lion's share. How about Josh Wolf? Not a lion, but just as scary. He's really quick. He's the slowest car in this class, but he's new to it. Watch for him to work his way through the field.
Yeah, he's been quick in the past, and like I said, I was surprised at his performance in qualifying, so I think he'll work his way forward. Certainly had a nice battle towards the end to finish on the podium at Imola. Involved some contact, but not necessarily their fault, as the drivers were fighting hard and came upon the battle for second in the GTLM class. You can see the big elevation changes across this course as they weave up and down the undulations. This is, of course, Lukey Heights, which has its huge crest up at the highest point on the track, down, diving into MG Hairpin once again. And then it's 2 corners, which are essentially flat out for these cars. The penultimate turn, and then into Swan Corner. So we ride on board with the GTD cars. Excuse me, GTLM cars, actually. But focus needs to be up front because we're waiting for the green flag. They come up to the acceleration line. Now that they cross it, Girard immediately on the loud throttle. Green flag is out here for round 12 at Phillip Island in the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. Down into the first corner, Girard well ahead of Dean Mole immediately. In fact, pretty much all single file by the time they hit the southern loop. Let's head back to the GTLMs.
Big interval between the prototypes and the GTLMs. Haley gets a good jump. Stephen McGarvey got a little bit front. He had to check up a bit. He gets in second. Gralty, Turcotte, and Young, your top 5.
Yeah, it looks like we had a good start out there from the front runners in the GTDs. They're doing a really good job to keep it nice and clean. Everyone going single file through the first corner. They're doing a great job right now, and we actually have a car off already.
That GTLM car of Ryan Huff, unfortunately, looks like Dewan had its first victim. And that was all on his own, honestly. Just some cold tires and not warming up, it seems. Up at the front, you can see Girard already trying to pull a gap over Dean Mole. He's got about half a second over the number 79. Oh, we got a car off behind them. Is that Peterson? That is indeed Leif Peterson into the grass in Lukey Heights the first time through, sending him straight to the tail of the prototype field.
Didn't hit anything, and he brings it back out. He gets it out in front of the GTLM leaders.
That's probably the best news for him, is that he doesn't have to work his way through the slower class without blue flags. As we complete our first lap, your order for the podium is Gerard, Mole, and Smith, who moves himself into the top 3. We might have a change for position in the lead of the GTLMs, though, because Stephen McGarvey is looking very good off of Swan Corner. He's behind Haley. How much is the draft going to be worth down this fast straight into Dewan? Not enough, it seems.
Boy, but he certainly has the pace to stick with him here as they work the second lap. Now, it was interesting to start on McGarvey. McGarvey's actually about a car length ahead of Haley as they came out of Swan, and McGarvey really had to check up and to let Haley get back out in front of him. Then when Haley got on the gas, McGarvey was really slow to the throttle, but he was able to catch back up.
Yeah, look at him right on top of Haley, coming down into Honda, but not willing to try and outbrake him. The Comet will continue to lead the train
If we
here
can
in
drop
these
back
early moments.
just a few spots back to the 11th overall to Olivier Chicot. Mike Young has just been ferocious at trying to get around him. He's about 3 car lengths back right now. He knows what's in store. He lost a lot of momentum going through the southern loop there, but he is working hard to see if he can make up some spots.
Well, yeah, he really does need to, as he's going to get a spot with Turcotte, unfortunately, slipping and sliding his way over Lukey Heights. In fact, he loses 3 positions. Lindsay and Hill as well get by, make that 4. As he tries to recover, Travis Henderson around the outside can't quite do it.
That was a fun catch by Olivier there.
Really was. Still, he probably is not thinking it's very fun considering how many cars got by in the process.
Look at that long slide.
Oh!
That was a great catch. Oh, no!
While we're watching this, Paul Slavonic has spun. He has clipped the outside grass and spun on the front straight. Paul Slavonic from second place in the GTDs. He was challenging Mark Kedrowski for the win, but he was challenging him for first place. But man, just an unfortunate event. Just got a little bit wide on the exit of this corner, clips the grass, and whammo into the wall.
Fortunate not to bounce farther out into the racing line.
Really is. Everybody did a great job being heads up, and eventually he gets it going. No spare car in this series, so he's going to have to deal with that severe damage. So we come back live. That puts him down 10th in class, but apparently got some big trouble with Turcotte being stuck. How did he get in the middle of the GTDs?
It happened just a couple of corners ago, Joe. Olivier Turcotte looks like he had some trouble similar to Ryan Huff.
Yeah, got loose. You'll see the Porsche out of Dewan. Need to go a little bit farther back. This is in the first corner.
There he is, yeah, just going off there.
And it looks like he caught the wall pretty hard in the process, so just to add to his misery, he's now trying to follow Ryan Huff through this field. We're talking about how similar it was to him. It set him back almost exactly the same.
Yeah, and Joe, that slots them into a natural gap that was forming in the GTDs between 4th and 5th places, but Mike Major losing a lot of time trying to avoid the accident that happened with Paul Slavonic, so he's lost a lot of time up to that top 3, but now Ryan Huff really struggling to get by Mike Major. He's going to try it on the inside here through this corner.
I think he's got it, and I think it looks like Turcotte going to be able to follow him through. He's trying to anyways. Oh, but we got to go to the lead because Duprat just made a move on Kedrowski. You said you weren't sure that Kedrowski could survive this. Well, thus far he's been doing pretty well. It's just Duprat has been applying a lot of pressure, and they've got our championship leader Santana in the mix as well.
Yeah, Kedrowski's really struggling with a tight race car right now in these early stages. He's his Mercedes AMG GT3 is really tight over the crests of these corners, and so it's making him push a little wide. Lionel Duprat's got his car a little bit looser, and so that's allowing him to get good exits off of these corners and get good runs into the braking zones. So Duprat in a good position to challenge Kudrowski here as Ryan Huff comes up behind him.
All right, as they come out of Swan, that's exactly what Kudrowski needed. Oh, and that is Santana off, trying to save the car, weaving back and forth. He manages not to hit the wall. He's back onto the track. It finally comes completely around and backwards, and he backs it into the tires.
That's a significant amount of aerodynamic damage for Kevin Santana. He tried his best, but he got clipped coming out of the final corner by Ryan Huff, and that just pushed him into the grass, and he wasn't able to save it.
He almost saved it about 5 times, and then it eventually got away from him. I'm gonna watch from on board here. Ooh,
Yeah, he just
there's
gets
the contact.
hit. Yeah.
That Ford was in a rush. But he's not going to be happy about that. Doesn't ruin things for him, though Major is now in a position well ahead of him. And just to make things worse, they've now got lap traffic coming through. And in fact, Billy Smith just got by Dean Mole.
Yeah, it's really too bad. Mole was doing a great job of staying ahead of Smith. I think Mole made a mistake and let Smith into the game. Oh, Smith gets caught up behind Kevin Santana.
Wow, what a move by Mole, though, to see that coming and pick his spot just right. Gets the spot right back. Let's look at the replay. I'd love an onboard from Mole on this one. Yeah, Santana was just trying to place his car where he could, thought that he had the apex, and Smith thought he had the apex. Unfortunately, he had to check up big time, almost lost control. Nice catch by Smith. And there comes Mole back by.
Yeah, and when it's all said and done, Smith only lost about 7 or 8 car lengths. He'll be able to run him down again. That's about the gap that I would last I'd look at it.
Oh, did Sheldon Rosenbaum just overtake Robert Kanchan as well? This is for 4th in the prototypes.
This is a great battle down here with Rosenbaum is in the mix, Kanchan, and then there's 2 more cars back there. Peterson, and look at Joshua Wolf back there as they all get around Kevin Santana as they go down into the MG. What is this Honda they're going into?
Woo. Yeah, and this is all getting checked up because of traffic. Now, I was wrong. That is Rosenbaum successfully defending from Kanchan down into the first corner. Robert had a great run. He had the draft, and he got it side by side, but couldn't seal the deal. Now the train manages to sling by Paul Slavonic, who lets them all through and can continue on their merry way.
That battle has been going on since lap number 1. All right, I've been trying to get you over here. Let's quickly go into the GTLM leaders here real quick. Right now, McGarvey's about 4 car lengths back. This can be anywhere from 4 to half a car length. McGarvey has been pestering Haley, but Haley's doing a good job of just staying cool. And how about Daniel Gralty? He's been about a second behind these guys the entire time. Young in 4th has not been able to make up any ground.
And Adam, you've been kind of watching Haley a little bit and noticing what's been going on with his driving. It doesn't seem like everything's right.
Yeah, Haley's struggling with locking up his front tires going into the slower corners, and that's been allowing Stephen McGarvey to get good exits on him. So Haley not happy with his setup right now. He's really having to dial in the brake bias in ways he doesn't like, and that's making him a lot looser than he'd like right now.
Right on board with McGarvey, giving chase to the Comet. They come back onto the front stretch. Haley with a nice job to get himself a little breathing space. And now Stephen McGarvey is going to have to try and regroup, get closer, and take advantage of the small errors that have been popping up here and there. Meanwhile, Billy Smith has not given up on Mole. They are coming out of MG right now, and he gets really close behind him through the hairpin. He wants to be close on the front stretch, though, to get that slipstream. They will have company. That's Turcotte and Huff in front of them.
Mole was quick early on, but he's fallen off the pace a little bit, and he's starting about maybe lap 5. Billy Smith be able to run him down, doing a good job of working their way through traffic. That is Ryan Huff, that both cars get through.
And we got a battle for position in the GTLM. Sorry to jump us around, but Paul Lindsay and Dave Hill have been side by side for 3 corners now, and I think Hill might be able to seal the deal. He's coming through Siberia, and indeed, the Canadian finally gets the spot nailed down. I'm not sure how this kicked off, and if this was an attack or defense. I think this was a defense. Yeah, looks like onto the front stretch is where it started, where Lindsay got a run.
Kudrowski, we don't need it. We'll watch this replay here as you see them side by side. In this report that Kudrowski and Cancion got into it. They're fine.
Well, when did Duprat take the lead away, though? Did we get this on screen before?
No, Duprat had a mistake, and Kudrowski had a mistake. He got a little tangled up with some prototypes about a lap ago, and looks like we're going to be able to find that replay here.
Yeah, that happened in the Southern Loop. It was with Robert Cancion.
Yep.
Here it is right here. Great job by our director finding this one.
Oh my goodness, it's a miracle that Kudrowski was able to save it there, and that just allows Duprat to go through.
Let's stay on this. Let's stay on this because Josh Wolf has a huge moment trying to avoid disaster. Watch this. Or no, he doesn't try to avoid disaster. He's given disaster. I didn't see him get hit before. That was Duprat.
And these are just the complications of multi-class racing, Joe. This is just one of the most difficult things that you can deal with as a race car driver, trying to manage 3 different speeds, 3 different classes, and he just gets sent.
And Mike Young just spun just now as we finish this one up. This was in Honda corner. He's getting back on track.
He was trying to let Mole and the prototypes go around him of Smith. Got his left side tires on the outside and went around.
He didn't hit anything. When did he get that damage, though? Interesting. Well, we'll have to do a little bit of research to try and figure out where that happened.
He had an off earlier on that lap. It looked like in Siberia the car got loose and he lost it. Oh, actually, it was Stoner.
Meanwhile, up in the GTLM, Stephen McGarvey not only wants to demolish Mike Young with his problems, he really wants to put the nail in the coffin because he's been working on Bradley Haley to see if he can take max points with a win. Unfortunately, he's not going to get the chance this time into Honda. Haley at times can be a very cool customer, and then at other times, he can suddenly crack. Which Haley do we have today?
Yeah, as of late, he seems to have gotten over those problems that he had when he first joined the series. But, man, I tell you, McGarvey has been working them. They've opened up about a half-second more on Daniel Gralty. Gralty was trying to stay with him. McGarvey can now race with a little bit more of a clear conscience with Young out of the mix.
And we had more action between Hill and Lindsay. This one, was this into Lukey Heights? Or did they have a car off? No, I'm trying to figure out where this happened.
Well, they're duking it out right now, Joe. Paul Lindsay just makes it past Dave Hill as Dave Hill makes a big mistake going through that corner. So that allows Paul Lindsay to get a good run here on the front stretch.
He tries to get a little bit of the slipstream from Gerard, our leader in the prototypes. It helps a little bit, but not enough really. The Ford now behind the BMW as they come into the Southern Loop. He could yet get another chance into Honda, and he could get a chance now because that was Lindsay going very wide through the Southern Loop. The door opens, and Hill steps through, but they're going to go 3 wide. There goes the car of Billy Smith, and that sends Lindsay all the way off into the gravel. And he spins for good measure. Well, that did not go as planned for the number 70. He was 3 wide, Bill, and it looks like he was trying to give more room than what his car needed. Oof, and all that gunk on the tires certainly didn't help him slow up the car.
And you see those 2 prototypes go by. We were looking at that 4-car battle with Rosenbaum, Cancion, Peterson, and Wolf. Well, Wolf has had his problems. He's out of that battle now. Rosenbaum has pulled away, So we're left with just a 2-car battle that our director has us on right now. This is for fifth, Kansian and Peterson.
Well, this is disappointing for Peterson. Again, qualifying in third on the second row, and he's all the way back in sixth. His early issue really sort of threw away a great opportunity. He's climbing back now. Kansian to his inside as they come up to Doohan. And he goes the long way around and makes it stick. Nicely done by the 39.
About 2.5 seconds up to Rosenbaum. We'll see if he can get up there.
Our GTLM leaders might have a bit of a complication soon because they've got the prototype leader coming up on them, Jason Girard, getting ready to lap them. And this will depend on where they get caught as to how much damage he could potentially do to their lap times.
And McGarvey will be... Yeah, McGarvey might just take advantage of this one if he gets the opportunity. Girard doesn't have to be too reckless here. Oh, they're going to split him up through Honda.
Yeah, but Billy Smith is only 1.3 behind. He's actually been keeping touch through all this traffic. I'm impressed with the 901 here. He's moved forward 2 spots, and he's looking for a third to see if he can get himself another win this season. It's been a bit.
Right, myself, that was the MG hairpin, but yes, they get through there. Girard, and look at Smith. Now, after Smith got around Mole, he's coming.
Down to 0.4 of a second. I said it was 1.3 less than half a lap ago. They come through the southern loop. They get a small breather. They do have Gerard Gilbert, who is one of our GTD cars, up ahead. But other than that, it's not really too clogged of a track.
One of the things we didn't talk about is a relatively small field for an Autobahn race, and that's going to help with lap traffic a lot. This track is not fun when it comes to lap traffic, all the left and right switchbacks.
Tell you what, they got close to Gilbert coming out of Honda. Not sure if that slowed Girard up. Certainly allowed Billy Smith to stay close as we watch our top 2 work their way up the hill. The orange and white car that you see leading, that is Girard. Second place is the white and dark colored car of Billy Smith. After Billy Smith missing out on a race that certainly hurt his poise in the championship. The last time that he won a race was Sebring at the second round. At this point, not being in the championship, knowing that Girard probably knows that Girard has it wrapped up, he's got nothing to lose. Speaking of nothing to lose, a battle to get just outside the podium for 4th place. Peterson on his climb back forward has caught up with Dean Molt, and he's going to slide a little bit wide, ambitious into Honda. That costs him some time, but they are also working their way through the GTLM leaders right now.
And this battle has put a little bit of a gap between Haley and McGarvey. There goes Mole, there goes Peterson. Nice run from Leaf as he continues to catch guys. This will be a tall order, though, to get to Billy Smith from here if he can get around Rosenbaum.
And as this is happening, we haven't looked at the GTD drivers in a while, so let's head back to that leader. Adam, what's been going on down there? You've been kind of quiet.
Yeah, Lionel Duprat has really taken off with this race, but the most interesting thing is that these GTD cars are having a really hard time closing in to try and make passes. We have a couple of people who are faster than the guys ahead of them, which is Mike Major, who's faster than Mark Kudrowski ahead of him. And we also have Shane Hunter and Eric Antilli, who are faster than Matt Owens, but none of them can really hold within about a second. Once they get up to a second, they have a hard time hanging onto the car and getting good traction out of the corners. So it makes it so that the gaps are holding at about a second. So these guys are probably just going to have to wait until pit stops and better tires to be able to, well, I guess they're not going to take tires. So, I mean, it's just going to be really difficult for them to make these passes. So they're going to have to do it based upon pit strategy and how good their outlaps are, I think, because these cars really aren't closing that fast.
As we watch them down the front stretch out of Swan Corner. Kudrowski still on pace for a decent finish, you have to say. A podium would be nice for the number 944. Mike Major still ahead of Kevin Santana, though. Oh, and battle on screen here in the prototypes. This is Gerard and Smith, and a change for the lead. Billy Smith up to the front. Got a great run down the front stretch. I think he used a little bit of traffic to his advantage as well. It was Paul Slavonic that they're coming up on there. Oh, boxed him in. Nicely done by Billy Smith. I said he's got nothing to lose. Well, that looks like a driver that is hungry for victory.
They get around Eric and Tilly. I don't think Smith is going to be going anywhere. Oh my goodness, that is right behind Shane Hunter. They met it. And there goes Gerard in the grass.
Just as we come to this battle down in the GTLMs, this is for 8th position. And, for 7th position. Huff ahead of Young, ahead of Trungale. So as Bill said, there was a small off for Gerard. He did get back on, didn't lose second place, and didn't hit anything, so he's still going.
About 3.5 seconds now behind Smith, which was once just a car lane, so we'll see what Gerard can do. Good battle on screen.
Yeah, Huff still leading the way. They come out of Siberia. Mike Young, don't forget, dealing with damage. You could see there, if you look at his rear wing, we saw it earlier, it is severely bent and not in the best of shape. Have to wonder what that is doing. Oh, and they're coming up on Slavonic, who's off course. No, that's Henderson, Travis Henderson, and that's for position. That jumps Henderson down 2 spots through Lukey Heights. Take a look and see how this happened. The rear just starts coming around pretty early in the corner. Yep. Unfortunately, all the weight on that Porsche towards the back. It's really hard to stop it from swinging around that way. For some reason, we've lost Olivier Turcotte. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, Turcotte lost it coming over the crest of one of the corners and just spun straight into the wall head on, and so he got too much damage. He towed and then had to drop out, unfortunately.
Well, that's sad to see with his speed that he's had this season. Just has not really been able to seal the deal too many times.
Yeah, and while we were going through all of that as well, Eric and Tilly went off track a little bit, and he has now lost a bunch of positions and is down to P8 in the GTD class, and that was just a self-spin coming through turn 2.
We stay on this fight. Bill, you know you've got a good race when I realize that I haven't looked at the clock since 3 minutes into it, and we're already halfway through.
It has been frantic. We have been jumping around a lot. Yeah, we're getting close to the pit stop window for the prototypes. I don't know if we mentioned it. Did we document, because I was multitasking, did we document that Dean Moll had an off and put the car into the wall? And that has brought him down with Kudrowski. Or no, that's Kudrowski's a lap down, sorry. No, it's Peterson. Nice battle with Moll and Peterson.
Meanwhile, Ryan Huff and Mike Young gonna go at it again. Young still on his climb back forward, but the Ford denies the Porsche as they come out of the southern loop. Looking for the run down into Honda, but it does not look like Mike has it here. He's way too far back to try and dive one in it this time. Still gives chase. They've got quite a bit of clear track in front of them. And that car that you see behind was Travis Henderson in the 24 that we saw trying to keep up after his mistake into this very corner. Huff under some immense pressure here at the halfway point. If I was Huff, honestly, Bill, and then granted I'm not the greatest of strategists, I'd just duck off at this point to try and get away from this, head into the pits.
Yeah, I would think that was probably, they're well within his window to do that. As we ride on board with Ryan looking back at Young. Similarly, I would think Young would want to be doing the same thing as well with the damage to that car. Let's bring it in now.
Well, he might not be aware of the damage as well. We don't know if he's got a crew chief in there who's watching and letting him know that he's got something on the rear wing. Certainly pushing the limits of the track to try and catch this Ford, though, all the way to the edge out of the southern loop. He's closer this time, but still going to be denied. Speaking of pit stops, Paul Lindsay is in, and actually this is not a stop, this was a tow. And Lindsay lost the car in Honda, yeah, but he didn't hit anything. This looked like he'd had enough for the day. Here we've got the replay. It's into this hairpin. Car comes around. And then after trying to get going once more, it spins again. And he says, enough of this. I'm going home.
As far as traditional pit stops are concerned, Eric Antilli has decided to come in after having his spin, and so he's now going to come back out in the 9th position overall. He should come out just ahead of Gerard Gilbert, which is last in his class. So he's decided to take an early pit stop and is the first of our takers. He will be fine at the end on fuel.
And he dutifully takes the prescribed pit exit that the stewards asked the drivers to do. So no penalty for the number 35. Let's go back to Mike Young, though. Still in 6th in his class, bumped up by Paul Lindsay's problems. Still giving chase to Ryan Huff, who's going to be overtaken by Gerard. And in fact, that puts him off the racing line. Mike Young regains a lot of the time. Gets right under that rear spoiler. Can he do something with this? He continues to find himself in a spot where it looks like maybe something could happen, and then it all starts to slip away.
I could report also that Kevin Santana is coming into the pits as well. He's going to get some repair damage done, and he's going to come back out on track. He should come back out probably ahead of Eric Antilli, but it's going to be close.
Santana, of course, spinning on the front stretch and backing it into the tire wall. Antilli is coming around out of Swan right now, and Santana isn't moving yet, so Antilli should get him easily. Indeed, Antilli is long gone. Gilbert is also by Santana. Well, this is a very long stop, is it not? Is Santana taking tires?
That's very possible, but we also have some really interesting goings on up front here. We have a lot of folks trying to snake their way around Gerard Gilbert as he's struggling back there in the 9th position. Just a crazy multi-class action right here on this back straight.
As you look at that mess, I just quickly report that Stephen McGarvey had an off out of Lukey Heights. He's lost 2nd position now to Daniel Gralty.
And that is Leif Peterson in that big group. Let's hope that it doesn't wind up in a multi-class action lawsuit, that everybody can stay clean here. That is Ryan Huff ahead of them, going to stay off to the right. He's going to get passed by 1 and 2, and they have successfully navigated the courts. I think I've silenced my co-commentators with those.
That's a good one.
It's
like to let it sit out there a while, Joe.
Yeah. Oh, and Billy Smith just set the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. When Smith and Gerard are in open track in front of without traffic, Smith is clearly faster. and he's opened it up. He had it up to 4.5 seconds. Traffic shrunk it a bit. He is really flying.
I'd say so. Sees as as we watch Billy Smith continue to lead the field, now past the halfway officially. So when are we going to get some drivers coming in? Not many early takers other than Antilli and Santana. Let's go to this battle between Daniel Gralti and Stephen McGarvey.
McGarvey had me off. He went off at Lukey Heights, got the car gathered back up. By the time he did, Gralti had got him. So here he comes now. He's got the run looking to duck to the inside here. Here he goes.
Gralti doesn't seem to want to fight it too much. He's just looking to get himself a podium. So he falls back into third as McGarvey comes back into second. He's got 5.7 up to Bradley Haley, who is looking for win number 3.
You talked about it, though, with Haley. Hopefully he's got that, I don't know, what would be a bad luck charm in his pocket, out of his pocket, because if there's bad luck to find it, Haley will find it, but right now he seems to be pretty comfortable. A 5-leaf clover, I guess that would be it, huh?
I think he mostly just wants the cameras off of him for the rest of the broadcast. Does not want the commentators' curse. Keeping half an eye up here, and also on Young and Huff. Now, Young was closer not too long ago, but he seems to be struggling. He's fallen back to a second on this battle for P5. There you can see the distance from onboard Huff, really graphically illustrating how much he's put between himself and Young. As that's happening, Josh Wolf is coming in for what I believe is a scheduled stop in the prototypes, and I think Paul Slavonic as well. There you can see them both.
Yeah, Paul Slavonic after his accident and Josh Wolf after his spin, both which trying to recover their drives from having their offs. So both of these guys are going to come in early and try and get some track position with an undercut this time. But quite a few prototypes in the pits.
Yeah, it is a pit party at this point. Billy Smith is in. Jason Gerard has come in. Sheldon Rosenbaum, Kanchan, Peterson, and Mole do not. They all continue. Otherwise, every single prototype driver has now been in or is in the pits.
Adam, Mike Young has that bent back wing. What's your take on that? When he comes into pit lane, is that an optional repair, or do you think iRacing is going to force that thing to be fixed?
I think that's for sure optional. Otherwise, he would have to come in and get that repaired via meatball, I believe. So he should be fine the way he is right now. But look at this ahead of him. That's Mark Kudrowski going off track. So this might give Mike Major second position now.
So as he manages a good run down the front stretch, Mike Major with a lot of speed over Kudrowski, easily slingshots by. Adam, what a prediction you made. Kudrowski now starting to slip backwards.
Yeah, he's struggling a lot, and Lionel Duprat has taken off into the distance. He's a good 5 seconds up from these guys, managing the traffic really well. Mike Major's struggling with a very tight race car, and Kudrowski's struggling with a very loose race car. So this open setup has really made things really interesting here in the GTDs.
Nothing missed an eye of Adam Lindgren, but the rest of our prototypes have now pitted. Mole, Peterson, and Kanchan. This should hand the lead back over to Billy Smith, who continues to be about 3.5 seconds ahead of Jason Gerard, who will inherit second once more.
Mole rolls out. I think he's going to get out in third.
He will
nope,
indeed.
There goes Rosenbaum.
Oop.
Rosenbaum got him. That's what I thought would happen.
Right. Still, Mole coming back to the fore. After falling down the order, he is in 4th place. Fortunately for Josh Wolf, he is still well back at the tail of the field, and it looks like a minute 14 behind the leader, so he's actually close to being lapped. Unless that just needs to catch up to timing and scoring. Oh, and we got some of our GTLMs pitting now. This is Stephen McGarvey coming in. Daniel Gralty has already pitted, so where are they going to come out in relation to one another? You can see on the pit lane the number 14. He's moving now. Daniel Gralty is just out of Swan. He's past the cones. McGarvey can start to get his speed up, but is this going to be enough, or is Gralty going to be able to get him? It'll be awful close as they come down into Swan, and I think McGarvey is just barely out ahead. Timing and scoring catches up. That gap between them, just about 0.7 of a second. Boy, they are dealing with small margins today in that fight. Oh, and has something happened to Rosenbaum? Rosenbaum just got overtaken by Mole and now Peterson. Looks like Rosenbaum had an off in turn 2 in the southern loop. And this was as he approached Paul Slavonic.
Boy, he had to dive underneath Slavonic. He did a good job.
He didn't want to be the next poor soul that takes Slavonic out. So, unfortunately for Sheldon, it puts him in 5th place.
He was having a really good run, too. Remember there was that battle with Rosenbaum, Mole, Peterson, and Kansian? Even Wolf in the mix. Rosenbaum was always in front of all of them. Well, now he's got to catch him.
And it looks like Mike Young is coming in now for his pit stop. There you see him on screen as he flashed by. Take some practice getting into this pit lane.
Did not make the pass on the track. Let's see if he can make it in pit lane.
And let's see what happens to that rear wing, if he gets that repaired or not. And if it helps his lap times.
Yeah, guys, this is actually one of the more difficult pit road entries on the service. It's kind of this sweeping downhill. It's really hard to come into this pit lane with a decent speed as we see Mike Young exit here.
Yep, he's going to continue to wear that wing at a jaunty angle. So, unfortunately, that will continue to affect his performance. The question is how much. Bradley Haley, our leader in the GTLMs, also pits. Ooh, and he misses his stall. That actually could be critical because Steve McGarvey is just now coming into MG. He lost time earlier. McGarvey now into the penultimate corner. Haley still stationary. Now he's getting going. He's up towards the front, so he's not going to have a long run. He's past the cones. McGarvey just coming out of Swan, and it looks like Haley's going to be safe. Over McGarvey dealing with a battle happening just next to him. Leif Peterson and Dean Mole trying to settle this podium position, this final spot of the top 3. Mole missing out of the podium last time at Imola is certainly going to motivate him to try and aggressively defend and hold on to this one.
Peterson has really been closing well. Boy, look at him taking it really deep down there as they go through Honda.
I'm up just a little bit into the hairpin. They work their way up towards the upper half of the circuit. 20 minutes left to go now.
Guys, Mark Kudrowski is in from 3rd place in the GTDs. This is our first person from the lead pack in the GTDs who's taking a pit stop. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not the undercut works here, especially because they don't have time to take tires. So these guys are just getting pits for the GTD cars. Just getting fuel for the GTD cars when they come into the pits. And so it'll be interesting to see how this works out for Kudrowski.
That was Dave Hill in the Ford that we saw finding his stall. Kudrowski is back out. Shane Hunter also came in behind him. Paul Slavonic is so far behind Kudrowski, though, that Mark is easily out ahead of him.
speaking of Fords, Ryan Huff is in. And this will be interesting in relationship to that battle with Young.
So Young is currently coming around MG. There we see Huff in his stall. He's getting going, but Mike Young is already coming around Swan. Huff's past the cones. Young has his speed up. I don't know. I think Young might have this. It's going to be close. You can see him in the background. Oh, he's up to speed now at this point.
And Lionel Duprat is in from the lead of the GTDs as well as Mike Major. So these two guys, the leaders in the GTDs, taking their pit stop now. Mark Kudrowski undercutting by 1 lap. I don't think that's going to do much with his battle with Duprat, but it might help him with about a second on Mike Major. We'll see as they exit the pits.
Owens finds a stall. Duprat continues on. Duprat's past the cones himself, exits out.
And guys, Mike
18.
Major's stop is long. Mike Major took tires. He has a 27-second stop, so this is going to lose him out to Mark Kudrowski and possibly even Matt Owens. No, Matt Owens in the pits, so he's going to come out in 3rd position, but this is a lot of time lost for Mike Major. He's lost a good 10 seconds to Mark Kudrowski.
That's really odd that we've seen a couple drivers now take tires, unless it was a mistake.
It's got to be a mistake. Majors knows enough that with 17 minutes to go, 2 tires aren't going to be worth enough.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. And looking at his stop time, it's half of what it would be usually for full 4 tires. So I think I agree with you, Bill. This has got to be a mistake from Major. And what a mistake as well, because again, he is chasing down Santana. He needs precious points. He wants to be battling with Kudrowski to at least get second and potentially with the win. As on screen, looks like Gralty and McGarvey having a little bit of a fight. That was Lionel Duprat that Gralty went by.
And Joe, this is Mike Major's best opportunity to get points on Kevin Santana. Kevin Santana having that trouble early on. He's actually down almost a lap here. So this is really going to be
Something
a difficult time for
Sorry
Mike
to interrupt. Haley has just lost the lead and is down to 3rd. He found the wall.
Out of Swan.
Oh, no. He goes from a comet to a meteor, just like that. And Bradley is now at the bottom step of the podium after looking like he had this one under control. Just touch the grass. Jeez. Well, McGarvey's certainly happy about that. This will extend his points lead and help make it all the harder for anybody to catch him in the championship, especially Mike Young.
Well, depending on how damaged Haley's car is, I'm not sure if he's out of the mix here. He's only about 3 seconds back at these guys.
That gives us a little bit of a shape of this race. And speaking of which, that gives us time now that all the pit stops have finished to run down your order, starting with the prototypes. The top 5 there are being led by Billy Smith, not the driver that we expected to really put this race in a lock, and he has got 5 seconds over the next one down. Jason Girard, he was the one that we thought would scamper away with things, putting it on pole, but then suddenly the race started to go away from him. He still is in 2nd, and he still has the championship at this point. He cannot be mathematically taken away from him. 3rd place behind him, Dean Mole. Again, he missed out on that podium 2 weeks ago in Italy. As he comes down to Australia, number 79 is looking like he might be able to take this one away. The only thing that can stop him at this point is himself or traffic. Leif Peterson running in 4th position. A little bit of a squandered opportunity on the very first lap. He drifted wide in Lukey Heights, went way to the back. He came back to 4th, but this podium has slipped through his fingers, unfortunately, at this point. Rounding out the top 5, it is Sheldon Rosenbaum. He's exactly where he started, but Sheldon has certainly put on some action today. He could have been a little bit higher as he was in a nice fight earlier and fell backwards. Bill?
One second, Joe. 1 second. We have Lionel Duprat, who just got collected by Chris Sherburne coming over the hill. This is a bad accident for him. He's got significant right front damage. This was just a lap car of Chris Sherburne getting loose over the hill, and this collected Lionel Duprat. This might be serious issues for him right now.
He went past the pit entry. Let's watch from on board, see if we can get a sense of how hard he hit. He's got 4 seconds back to second place currently, which is Kedrowski. That is got to be the worst feeling, seeing that car slowly veer into you.
And he is losing time to Kedrowski.
Now Mike Major's got to be kicking himself for taking those tires. He could have had a win here, yeah, especially with Duprat's mistake, with Duprat's unfortunate event now. But Kedrowski now in the catbird seat, he's got an opportunity for the win. Let's go back to you, Soup, and catch back up with those GTLM.
Not nearly exciting what's going on there. Steve McGarvey spent the early part of the race hounding race leader Bradley Haley. Made a mistake, lost a spot to Gralty, got that back. When Haley made a mistake, that moved Gralty up into second and Bradley Haley down to third. So McGarvey, Gralty, and Haley there, as I confuse our director on that one. My apologies to that. Let's go back to something a little more safe. How about Dave Hill? Dave Hill back in fourth spot, ahead of the battle that was going on with Ryan Huff in fifth. Huff was able to leave Mike Young behind. All right, let's go to Adam.
Lionel Duprat, as we just saw, having that accident, he's in some serious trouble now as he goes off course in the penultimate corner. He's going to have some serious trouble now as Mark Kedrowski in second position coming up from behind. He's definitely going to make the pass here for the lead, so that's going to swap them positions because Lionel Duprat just does not have any top end speed. He's down 3 miles per hour. Let's see whether or not Mark can make this move here. He goes for the outside. He just can't hold on to it. That's going to allow Duprat to hang on. Let's stay here for the moment because it looks like Lionel Duprat is going to be able to hang on to this position, I think. Mark Kedrowski just not able to do much with it. But Duprat really struggling. For a moment, let's talk about Mike Major, who's coming in third place. He has really been struggling with this car ever since his pit stop. Those 2 tires not doing him any favors at all. So he's kind of kicking himself now as Kedrowski and Duprat battled it out for the front. Matt Owens in the 4th position, doing a solid job himself. Just hanging on there, being a super consistent drive. And then back in 5th position, we have Paul Slavonic, who had his accident in the early stages and is really struggling. But let's get back up to that battle for the lead because it looks like Kedrowski has just made the pass on Lionel Duprat, and he is now in the lead of the GTDs.
Yep, that happened coming into Lukey Heights. He finally got a long enough straight that his straight line speed helped him out. And as we watch the replay, you'll see here, he even set it up coming off the corner, got himself to the left side, knowing which way Lukey Heights was going to swing, and that denied the chance for Duprat to defend the corner. And he snuck on through.
Yeah, Kedrowski really couldn't afford to wait much longer to make that pass because Majors was coming behind these guys.
Yeah, and Mike Major has been gaining on Kedrowski. Believe it or not, Kedrowski's undercut netted him about 2 seconds on Lionel Duprat overall. So Mike Major is really on a charge now. He's cut the gap from Kedrowski down from 10 seconds back to about 4. So even though he's struggling on tires and not feeling comfortable in the car, he's making really good time around this challenging course.
As we ride on board with Major, looking ahead. That is Duprat just in front of him. At this point, he's got to be aware that something is amiss with how quickly he is suddenly catching the number 18.
Yeah, and Duprat has front right suspension damage, so that's what's causing him to lose a lot of time. Mike Major having to give way to Jason Gerard, as looks like Duprat tries to, but he's just struggling with grip right now. So Duprat's race is effectively over, but let's see how much he defends here against Major. He really blocks him off there going into this corner.
He's trying with all of his life to salvage something from this, to see if he can keep this second place. I don't know that he can do anything on this front stretch, though. They now come through Swan. Here comes Major with a huge head of steam, and that black and white Mercedes makes it look easy, as unfortunately the Texan has to stay off to the right. Even a defensive line is fruitless. Major now into second, but with all of that being held up, he is 4 seconds behind Mark Kudrowski and only 9 minutes left. He has got to hustle to catch him.
It's doable, but it's going to be really hard, Joe.
I'm not sure that he's had the pace at this point. He's a little faster, it seems, but not fast enough to really challenge like he needs to, unless traffic plays his way.
Let's take a quick peek if we go to Daniel Gralty, if we could. Little by little, Bradley Haley's been able to run him down. I think Haley might be close enough to make the pass this time around. Nope, too far back, but it's going to happen pretty quick. Haley clearly faster than Gralty.
Now the Porsche versus BMW. Gralty, though, a half a second up. It's another 1.5 up to Stephen McGarvey. So he can see him up there. But again, it's a very similar situation to what we have between Major and Kudrowski. Well, that answers the question right there. Adam, you usually are one of our experts on car setup, and it's looking like Haley's just not got the handling he wants at the end of this race.
Well, Haley had to adjust his brake bias at the beginning of this race because he was locking his fronts, and that put his brake bias to the rears. And what that does is that ends up locking the rears faster than the fronts, and that ends up sending the rear end of the car around in front of the front end. So you're not allowed to put as much. Once you get past a certain threshold, you're unable to put as much brake pressure down as you want before it starts spinning the back of the car. And what it looked like there is he wasn't able to brake. He braked a little late and put a little bit too much brake pressure in, and that's sent the car around.
So it sounds like Bradley Haley is going to want to have to get a push me, pull me, so that he can drive it both ways. But certainly not going to find that even here in the wilds of Down Under. With 7 minutes left to go.
The car would be really fast in reverse, though.
It would be pretty impressive, yeah. So we watch our leader continue on. Billy Smith now ahead by 5.2 seconds over Jason Girard, who himself is leading Dean Moll by 11 seconds. The top of the prototype field has spread out in the dying stages, everyone just looking to get to the end from here. Really, the battle that we're interested in the most is the potential bubbling up between the lead and second place in the GTDs, Adam.
Yeah, Mark Kudrowski and Mike Major. Mike Major has pace on Kudrowski. He can see him directly ahead, and they don't have much lap traffic coming in behind them in the future. And as you can see, he has been gaining, but those gains are interspersed with a couple laps of poor performance, especially lap 34 and 36. So he's going to have to be consistently in that half a second to 1 second range, which he's achieving now in clean air, if he's going to make his way to Kudrowski in the next 5.5 minutes.
Wasn't too much faster on the last lap either, on 36. The 944 under pressure, but maybe he's responding. I looked while we were going through our order to see some stats on Kudrowski. His best finish this year, 1 third place, his only podium. Other than that, it's not been anything worthy writing home about, and he goes a little bit off track, so clearly pushing to try and take this victory home. He wants to make it lights to flag, but if he keeps doing that, he could toss it away.
Yeah, Joe, it's just some people have a natural tendency towards tracks like this, tracks that are very difficult and very driver oriented. So it's very interesting.
Boy, Major is coming.
And we're looking now at Paul Slavonic trying to challenge Matt Owens, and they're right behind Lionel DePratt, who's struggling. So Paul Slavonic may be able to use Lionel Duprat has a little bit of a pick here to try and get past Owens.
Duprat up onto the podium as we watch from onboard Slavonic. Nice recovery from Slavonic, I have to admit.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I wrote him off, Joe. When he had that accident, I thought that his car was going to be done, but he's put in a really impressive drive. If he can get these 2 passes done, that's going to put him on the podium.
Absolutely, and I'm the same. I wrote him off, thought, well, there goes a decent finish, but certainly won't keep him well into the championship, although he will be ahead of Santana. But
he's going to go for it here, I think.
Boost as he's down to the inside into MG, late on the brakes, and Owens gives it up, does not defend. Paul Slavonic now up to 4th. Next on his hit list, Lionel Duprat, who is limping.
This is a free spot, so that's going to put him onto the podium as long as he can stay consistent and not make a mistake like he did early on. So this is going to be interesting to see what he can do here. But Matt Owens is coming with a head of steam behind him. This might end up 3 wide if they are not careful.
Last thing that Slavonic wants, he defends to the inside, covers him off, and Owens thinks better of it into doing. So what can Duprat do in these last 3 minutes? And in fact, how many laps left to go? Oof, yes, it was. I think we have 3 laps left at this point.
Duprat's going to be desperate to hang on to this. Slavonic's going to be desperate to get by. He wants this podium. This is really important to him. He's really challenging. Man, Duprat's really slow through the center of the corners there. This is really a tight battle.
Well, and you're right. Look at how much he gets underneath him. In fact, he had to check up in the middle of Siberia, and that cost Paul Slavonic. He needs to get tucked right underneath that rear wing as they run onto the front stretch. That is going to be his best opportunity.
Joe, I think Duprat is parking it on the apexes on purpose because he knows that Slavonic's best opportunity to pass is off of the exits and down the long straights. So if Duprat can slow down Slavonic on mid-corner, then he's not going to get a good exit and won't be able to make a pass, but Duprat's off track. Here's Slavonic's opportunity. He's looking at the inside.
Oh, and once again, he's got to back out of it. Is he close enough that the slipstream could help? Or is he going to be under attack once more by Matt Owens? Owens himself had to check up. The answer is the front stretch is too short.
As a race car driver, I understand what Duprat's doing, but as a competitor and someone who has to drive with these guys every couple of weeks, this is a really dangerous thing to do. You're really risking your reputation and your friendships here by blocking these guys. Duprat knows he's slow, but he also knows he only needs to hold on for a couple laps, and now they have Mike Young and Ryan Huff challenging them behind as well. This has become a multi-class incident.
Young was able to get around Huff. Remember, that's that battle we were looking at. Now here comes Huff. This is going to be really exciting.
He's making it work around the outside, and Paul Slavonic muscles his way through to get back onto the podium, and that opens the door for Matt Owens also to demote Duprat down to 5th. Whoa, as he almost gets into Huff, just at the last second realizes he's there.
And I can report that Mike Major's not going to make it to Kudrowski, so this is the closest battle we have on track, but we should be coming to the white flag here for all these guys soon.
We are indeed. Billy Smith is heading up the backstretch. Well,
and around goes Owens. Huff got into him as they were fighting in the MG hairpin.
Yeah, Huff was looking to try and get by as soon as he could, and unfortunately, there he was at the apex.
And believe it or not, Matt Owens coming back on track got in front of Billy Smith as well, so that slowed down Billy Smith. He still got 4 seconds to Jason Gerard, but that was a really risky moment for Billy Smith as well, so Matt Owens just not having a good end to his race at all.
Watch it here. Billy's just taken the white flag way off track. Billy has managed it. He's got a 4-second lead down to Jason Gerard. Again, the last time that we saw Billy Smith on top of the podium was at Sebring, of all places. That's round 2.
There's our GTLM leader, comfortably about 3 seconds up on Gralty.
Indeed, it should be a nice finishing order unless Smith catches our GTD leader, which no, he will not. Thought I heard her spin just now. Did somebody have some issues? I think it was Ryan Huff, it
Ryan
sounds
Huff
like.
did, yeah.
That was right in front of our leader. He goes off track in Lukey Heights. Billy Smith, however, looks like he has plenty of gap. He's playing it safe. He knows he's got a win on the cards. A response to his critics. A race ban will not stop this man. The 901 wins here in Australia.
Down into the MG hairpin is our GTLM leader, Stephen McGarvey. Works his way around the lap car of Chris Sherburne. Heading to Swan, Joe.
Stephen McGarvey leading the championship, leading this race. This will be a handy little points haul. Victory extends the gap for Stephen McGarvey here today at Phillip Island.
Mark Kudrowski now going into Lukey Heights. Mike Major behind him, kicking himself for taking those tires because it lost him this position that would have given him a win here. Mark Kudrowski just needs to navigate Lukey Heights in the MG hairpin, the last couple corners, and he'll be good to go. Mark grinning at that undercut that gained him the 2 seconds that's put him out of reach from Mike Major.
Looked a little shaky coming through Lukey Heights. He still has to finish this thing. He comes out of the penultimate turn and into Swan, nice and tidy this time. Off to the line for the 944. Mark Kudrowski takes his first victory in the series here in the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. And in fact, this is only the 4th time he's finished within the top 10.
Joe, Gralty's out of fuel.
Oh, wow. And he's being pushed by Mike Young. Is Young giving up positions for this?
He will be
He
as
might.
Ryan Huff's about to go by.
He will. There goes Ryan Huff. I don't think Young is even thinking about the championship anymore. Or was Ryan Huff on a different lap? I think Ryan Huff maybe was on a different lap.
Yep. Different lap.
So he did not pass them, so it was not a risk. In the meantime, we have a post-race show to get to. Before that, we're going to show you all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Stick around and you'll see the driver interviews as well as the unofficial results. So don't go away. Welcome back to Phillip Island. We just watched round 12 here in the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge, and though we have a new champion, we did not have him as the victor today, as it's been for much of the season. Billy Smith comes back and takes another win down, and Jason Girard settles for second, but at the same time, he's got to be happy and celebrating knowing that he is now the champion, cannot be taken over in the points mathematically. Dean Mole redeems himself and gets back onto the podium with a third place here today. Leif Peterson unfortunately misses out on it, even though he started on the podium. He finishes fourth. Sheldon Rosenbaum with a P5 for him. Robert Canchian takes sixth, and Josh Wolf, this was a race he'd like to forget. Once again, snake bit and being hit by another class put him well down the order today. Let's go to Bill.
McGarvey raced to second on the early on, made a mistake, fell back to third, got it all back. When Bradley Haley made a mistake, McGarvey came home with the win. Bradley Haley, who was out in front, will have to settle for second as that 5-leaf clover came into effect. When Daniel Gralty ran out of fuel, Dave Hill picks up the final podium spot. Daniel Gralty gets fourth, being pushed across by Mike Young. Ryan Huff is behind them with Joey Trungale and Travis Henderson.
Mark Hadrowski making almost miracle win for him, considering his other finishes this season. So coming home with a great P1 for him. Mike Major kicking himself at that 2-tire stop. He comes home in second place, but picks up a lot of points on his championship challenger. Paul Slavonic in third position, a fantastic recovery drive after a lap 1 accident. Lionel Duprat, after getting hit hard by the lap car, I believe that was Matt Owens. He's now finishing in fourth position. Shane Hunter in fifth position. A pretty decent race from him. Good, consistent. Eric Intilli was all the way up to fourth position for a while, but then had a couple of offs and comes home in sixth. Matt Owens, after his spin and incidents, comes home in seventh position. Kevin Santana could never recover from his accidents. He comes home a whole lap down from the leaders in eighth position, along with Gerard Gilbert and Chris Shearburn rounding out your GTD field.
There we get to the DNFs. Paul Lindsay, Olivier Turcotte, Mark Wilson, and Art Peck. All of those in the GTLM except for Wilson, who was a prototype. None of the GTDs fell victim today, it seems. So with that, we have our winner with us. And after being told to sit down for a race, you come back with not just a victory, but a victory on pure pace and impressive style. Billy, that felt like a statement.
Thanks, Joe. I don't know if it was intentionally, but that's what it turned out to be. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I was just watching a little bit of the broadcast there, and it's just there's such a history with a lot of us veterans of this series and you guys, and so I mean, I do have to kind of apologize for some of that behavior. I mean, like I said, there's so much history. You guys know, I'm a passionate driver, so I see the red mist, I get excited, all those good emotions that a driver puts out, and I definitely let those, I guess, that frustration get the best of me, and so definitely did some soul searching there in the off time. Did a little bit of real racing and got my, I guess my, call it confidence, call it mojo, whatever, back. And it just felt really good once we got going.
Did you ever? And let's focus on the good and not the bad, because this race, you didn't lead the whole way. You had to run down not just Gerard, but other drivers ahead of you, and one by one pick them off until you were up to the front. I mean, were you just kind of in the zone out there today?
A lot of it I was, Joe. When I was behind Dean, kind of I was looking ahead into the race, and when me and Dean were kind of dicing it up, and I noticed that Jason wasn't just leaving us like I thought might happen once we started, me and Dean started really racing hard there. Then it kind of gave me the confidence that, well, maybe.
Well, I'd say whatever the case, you looked incredible today. This is only your second win of the season, though. You are on an upward swing naturally now, and with 2 races left to go over in Europe. Do you like your chances off to Silverstone and Spa?
Silverstone will be interesting. Of course, we're running on the new track now. It's I don't know what the other one is, Spa. I've never been really that great there for some reason. I'm just gonna race them as well as I can, as clean as I can, and just see what happens. Of course, I think I'm pretty sure I'm mathematically out of the championship, so it's just gonna about going out there and having fun.
Well, it looks like you had some fun today. Congratulations again on the victory, and I was really wowed with your performance on track, sir.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
That was Billy Smith, very humble in his victory, I have to say. Uh, and unfortunately, the only interview that we're going to have because nobody else has showed up. I would have loved to talk to Mark Kudrowski about his victory and some of the other drivers about their excitement, but it was not meant to be. So let's wrap it up with a big thank you once again to the Autobahn series and their organizers for bringing us back for another season of coverage. As things wind down, let's hope that we get to cover this one again because, boy, we enjoy season after season get to call these races. Also, a big thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts. They're listed on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Bill, Adam, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook as at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram is at GSRC_cram. Head on over to our YouTube page when you get the opportunity, or just scroll below this video and hit the big red subscribe button if you haven't already. That way you won't miss a moment here on the GSRC. Next round is going to be at Silverstone. That'll be Monday, September 23rd at 9:15 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series, though, listed on the screen. So check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.